Hello everyone and welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. This is your first time viewing the channel. Think about hitting that subscribe button. Hit the bell if you want updates. If you've been around for a while, this is maybe a video you've been waiting on. It's another making custom dials video, and I'm going to talk about film-free Waterslide decals and using those to help make dials. And I know that that's one of my more popular series, and so this video is all about that. Things that are coming up in the near future. The next review video I'm going to do is, might as well do the wrist check right now, is on my Vacheron Constantin, and this is going to be a wonderful video. I cannot wait to show this up close, the macro view. See if I can zoom in here, get some good views for you there. This is a Royal Eagle. This is a US edition only of 100, and I am just thrilled to have this in my collection. I've been consolidating. I've got a few stepping stones to my Arm & Strom, which again, go back, look at that video series if you want. I'm saving up for my Grail, but I got a couple stepping stones. This is one of those, and there's another one coming in a couple weeks. So be watching for the review video on this. Then there's something else interesting in the works, but I'm not going to say much about it now. Probably when I do the review video for the VC, and let's just say it has something to do with podcasts. So there's something else kind of cool going on behind the scenes in the works. Before I get into this video's overview, if you haven't checked out the iOS app Watchy for managing your watch collection on your phone, I recommend taking a look at that. Links below. And a new version came out just like last week, which has a lot of cool new features like reminding you when you have a warranty that's going to expire, if it's been 30 days, 60 days, etc. since you've worn a watch, and also reminds you every day if you haven't set a watch what one you were wearing today, so you remember to set it in the app. And since I was wearing my VC today, which is brown and red, I thought that would go good with this Vario blue-red t-shirt, hashtag watch addict. So me, probably you too if you're watching this, but links for these t-shirts are below as well. Let's talk about what I'm going to show in this video. There are a couple other videos on YouTube. I've watched one or two that show using Waterslide decals to make custom watch dials. And it's really something you just got to kind of tinker with. It's trial and error like anything else when it comes to making custom watches, making custom dials. And it's something I've been wanting to get to for a while. If you look back through some of my older videos, you know that I have a pad printer and I have a 3D printer, and I'm using other methods to make custom dials. And this is just another method I wanted to try and show you what the process sort of looks like and give you sort of that quick walkthrough on a YouTube video on how I did a couple test runs. So I'm going to be testing two different types of Waterslide decal paper from Scopa, Type A and Type B. Type A, these are both film-free Waterslide decal paper, and you can see here on the reverse that, getting focus, that the Type A is for polished surfaces, ceramic, glass, polished metal, so your more non-porous surfaces. This is the laser type of paper. There's Waterslide decal paper that can be purchased for inkjet printers. Inkjet's not going to get you as good a quality as laser, obviously. So both of these, Type A and B from Scopa, are meant for laser printer. And I'm using a Brother laser printer, and I'll put the exact model in the video and in the description below. So both of these come with a form of glue. So glue W1, this is a clear, almost looks like a thinner. And then there's a glue W2, which is sort of a milky color. It's, pretty liquidy too. It's not thick or anything, but we are not going to be using the glues that come with these. We are going to just use the decal paper. The reason you would use the glue is if once you started to put the decal paper down, you wanted it to adhere and stick and not be as movable on the surface as you're working with it. But you got to be pretty sure where you're putting it and do so at the right speed and the amount of glue, because once it adheres, you can't move it around. Waterslide decals, as you'll see, will remain pretty movable with water, and so we want to have time to get them in the right spot, and I don't want to have to rush it per se and take my time with it, so I'm not going to be using the glue. Now, inside the front cover of both of these is the same instructional information. Let me just take this out and show you what this looks like. It tells you the stuff you're going to potentially need depending on the process you use. Going to print things to remember about printing is you print on the glossy side of the paper. You have to remember to reverse the image. So for example, the printouts that I'm going to do, I have reversed all of them. So you can see that these have been mirrored. In the drawing tools, like I use graphic, or if you were in Photoshop or Illustrator or something like that, it's sometimes called flip horizontal. Sometimes it's called mirror or reverse. I got several different things here. I wanted to use up as much of the piece of the decal paper as possible. These are yellowish green markers for glass 42. There's some for glass date, which has an orange second hand. And then I'm going to cut these logos out and could use them on any particular watch style I want. For this sort of nautical Art Deco theme style design that I came up with, I've numbered them 1 through 6. Again, I will show you what this looks like on the actual screen. Basically, I've printed out some duplicates and variety so I can do different testing and see what they look like on different surfaces. So that's the things you gotta remember. Print setting, you wanna have glossy heavyweight paper, both set on the printer, maybe in your print settings in the app, and then maximum photo resolution. Once you have that, you're going to cut it out, leave a little bit of an edge, soak it in water for a certain amount of time according to the directions for the paper you're using. For drying, you have some options with the multi-purpose. You can let it air dry. We are going to use heat. They suggest 3 different methods. The oven is going to work best. You could use a hair dryer. You could use a microwave. Don't do that with metal dials. You will blow up your microwave. We're going to use the oven and bake it, again, for whatever your decal paper's requirements say. I'm going to do this for about 20 minutes or so and see what happens. And they give you the temperature and everything. So that's the process we're going to use. And yeah. Now, visually, the main difference between type A and type B is type A is a little bit more clear and glossy of a look. It looks like just gloss paper, essentially. Whereas type B, the multi-purpose, again, for more porous surfaces, has a sort of a matte sheen to it. You can see that's not near as glossy. It certainly is a very different type of material, and it has a stronger adhesive smell, stronger glue smell to it, type B does. So you will notice there's a difference between those 2 types of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sheet of paper, load it manually in the tray on my Brother printer, and print out the images that we want to test. All right, so given these designs, I have 4 test surfaces. The first being the movement holder for my glass series. And so the orange and the yellow markers here would go around this movement holder, which is meant to hold an ETA 2800 series or the Seleta 200 series watch movements. So that's the first one. And I'm gonna try, I think, B on this, the multi-purpose one, and see how that does, see how that holds up. This is a sort of a matte as opposed to a polished metal. And also, one thing I will mention is alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, shouldn't remove the paint once it's adhered and baked onto the surface, but acetone will. So if you want to test something and then try it again, you'll need some acetone, which should take the paint off pretty quick. I shouldn't call it paint, it's really ink, print toner. So that movement holder is the first. The next test surface is just a brass blank that had a previous design. I've sanded and polished it off. I'll show you what that looks like as well in the video, the original. You can kind of see the old design still kind of there shadowed in the background. But I will test this with type A. And so let's do this. We got type B, we got type A. Again, I could always retest these if I want. Up next, we have a completed dial. It's a high gloss, hard surface. And so this is going to get type A. I'm just going to take my logo, the one that's in the center of these, and test what that's like on the surface. This is about also testing scale, detail, how small, how fine of a print can I get to transfer cleanly. And so this is going to be a good test for that. This dial is about 28.5 millimeter, which is a pretty common dial size. So this is going to get type A. And then I have a blank pre-painted matte dial, again 28.5, and this is the one where I'm going to put the nautical design on it. And I'm going to use type B for this, since this is not a glossy surface. This is a matte painted surface. And then these are all going to get baked in the oven. We'll see how these paints, these done dials, hold up in the oven too. So let's get to it. Okay, so the dials are out of the oven and I've let them cool off, and now I'm going to just take the tweezers and take the film-free covering off of the dials. So we're going to start with the one with just the logo, and this of course was the polished surface. This is with the type A paper, and again I will use the tweezers and take this off, and then I will show you up close what ink stays on the dial and what maybe comes up with it. I would expect just after applying this on some of the surfaces that some of the ink will come up, but I guess we'll see. And carefully do it so as not to scratch the actual paint and dial with the tweezers. There's a little bit of a lip here on this, so let's, I don't know that I'm going to use this. Let's see if this actually works. Okay, now I can see it. You probably can't. It worked pretty well. You see just a little bit of the tin came up with it. Other than that, it looks pretty perfect. So in terms of proof of concept, this will work. And just like any sort of dial making I do, I don't put all my eggs in one basket. If I was making a custom dial for a client, which I've done, I don't just have one dial that I take through the process. I'm probably making somewhere between a half dozen or a dozen copies of the same thing and working on those throughout the process, so that maybe one or two of these may not completely adhere correctly, but probably some of them will. And so this is a really cool example of why it's important to have multiple dials working through the same process. Now, but in terms of the quality, it looks pretty good. It's there. It's not probably quite as good as pad printer, so it's like anything else. It's not perfect, but you know what? It's not bad either. To the naked eye, it looks perfectly fine. Aside from the tin not being complete there. So that was that one. Let's take this dial off. We'll get that under the macro lens and see what that looks like. Now let's do the colored lines. Now when I was applying this, I noticed that a couple of the lines got messed up. The thing that this taught me in terms of the process was, and I knew this sort of going into it, what I need to do is make a holder for the holder that has a surface flat across it underneath of the center, so that there's appropriate pressure and tension, and this can adhere to the full surface instead of just this holder. It's hard to apply, and so what happened is some of the lines got messed up a little bit more than I would have liked. This is more about seeing, does this particular color look good on the holder that matches the second hand, or if I would want something darker. I do have orange ones as well, which would probably look better, but I wanted to see if the color would transfer and what sort of was harder or easier to apply in terms of the surface types and such. So let's take this off. I would expect that not all of this is going to stick either, but it might look okay. Again, this is proof of concept more than anything. I also would probably try the other type of paper as well. I knew this one wouldn't stick as well just because of the way I did it. Some of it's transferring okay. I can tell which ones will and which ones won't. Just needed a better surface holder for the holder itself. So a couple of the lines came off the way I would want them to. So for example, there's one. You see some of them a little bit choppy. I knew they were going to be choppy because of the air bubbles and stuff. But again, this is sort of just showing you the process and things to watch for. These actually look pretty decent at 8 and 10. Yeah, I've got to fix some sort of a surface and then it would work fine. And actually, that color, yeah, I mean, it looks okay. Faint. Probably should do like some sort of loom or applied thing on this surface, but this is just a scrap piece. I'll clean that off and then I'll try something else like applied markers or something. But that's an interesting thing. So if I was going to do this again, I know what things to fix. That's why I say you got to test things out, tinker with them a little bit, so I know what to do and what not to do and how to do it when I try this again. And one is, again, to fix something that this can sit on and has a completely flat outside and inside to help get sort of more perfect with adhesion of the decal paper to the surface. Knew that sort of, but I guess it verifies it. Now we can take the decal paper off. This was sort of just to test the type of paper and doing it on a brass dial blank. I wondered, this surface was actually pretty uneven with the, you'd have to get this polished like butter smooth for it to work correctly probably. It's going to look sort of rustic. I guess you could sell it as a rustic dial design. Same thing. I knew with the scratches on the dial it was probably not going to adhere great. You can kind of see that there's pieces of the toner on there. And let's pull this up, see what it looks like a little bit closer. But in terms of the precision, it's pretty good. Just got to work at it, right? This dial blank is just not in good enough shape to get good adhesions, you know, smoothly across the surface. But it does work pretty well as a process. Just got to have the right surfaces to do it on. Here's the one I really, the two main ones I was really thinking, you know, how's this going to go? What's it look good on is this one. Works fine. Let's see how it performed on this. Again, my concern is on this one is how many air bubbles maybe still were underneath the paper, underneath the lines, and so how perfect is it going to be when I pull this up. So let's, I'm going to do this slowly because I particularly care about it, because I could actually use this in a watch if it was pretty good. Got to remember to use the 3 o'clock whenever you apply these. There's that notch at 3 o'clock, and you want to get this correct so that whenever the dial feet go into the movement, that everything's the right way. This one adhered really well on this side. Whew. Almost too well. I almost need to hold the dial down with something. Get some pegwood, but I'm just going slow with it. This is one where patience is going to help you in the long run. I see there was just a little bit that came off of the line right next to 1 o'clock. It's fine, may not look too bad. Not all the hat is going to come off, it looks like. Didn't adhere. Is what it is. It's too late at this point. What did stay looks okay. Quite fine detailed. I said I'd do a bunch of these, and hopefully one of them, when all said and done, does okay. A bit surprised that the hat had an issue there. It must have just been a bubble or something underneath him there. It's a shame. This is looking really good. I guess I could maybe try to fix it. Print just that part of it. Cover it up with an applied logo. If the rest of this comes off okay, I might just use an applied logo on that. Cover it up. Okay. All right, so only 2 imperfections on this. And one is this side of the hat, which is a little surprising because these lines are a little bit thicker. And there was one little piece right there next to the one on that exterior circle came off. Other than that, it looks perfectly fine. So this would be pretty cool, actually. Even with that little spot missing there at 1, I could just put an apply logo over this. I have black logos. Put a black logo over it, and it would be fine. That turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. So big things to keep in mind if you're going to do this on your own. Make sure you get as much of the air and water out of the way as you can once you have it applied to prevent little bits coming up. You got to have as smooth a surface as possible, flattest surface. So if you're going to be using a blank, you got to have this thing perfectly flat, and you've got to have it polished down to where it is just smooth, no weird scratches or anything, where things can adhere as well. If you're going to have some surfaces that have windows in them and other things, then you're going to have to maybe build a holder, some sort of an apparatus to fill in those gaps so that you can use the complete square or circle. It makes it easier to apply. You can't have big gaps in it and it perform very well. It just moves around too much. And then, yeah, that'll work pretty well at the end of the day. Now I kind of want to put it in a watch. Let's get this under the macro lens because I want to see what this looks like really up close. Okay, so here we are in macro view. You can see that this surface is a matte surface. You can also see that the printing is a little bit more pixelated, we'll call it. That looks digital, I guess, in a way. Particularly the hat. Whereas if I did this with pad printing, it would be sort of buttery smooth. Of course, this is going to vary and depend based on the printer you're using. And I'm using a Brother laser printer. You can kind of see the lines there with the circle. You wouldn't have that with pad printing and laser etching in the steel plates. But this is at a macro level. I mean, it looks okay. And if you were just making a one-off watch, way more cost effective. Like this is way cheaper than doing a pad print design for a one-off watch. So if you don't care, to an extreme about macro shots, this looks perfectly fine at a distance. Like looking at this at the naked eye on a watch, you cannot tell that it's that sort of pixelated. Only under the macro lens will you notice that. To the eye, it looks smooth. Okay, so that's that one. Let's look at the logo, see how that came. I want to see if it looks as digitized on this one as the other one. It does. You can see my laser etched applied logos and my pad printed logo is a lot smoother. But again, at a distance, naked eye looks smooth. So we got our polished surface and we have our matte surface dials. These pre-made dial blanks that were pre-printed, pre-painted, work really well. And so if you can buy blanks like this, or from older dials, or new blank ones, like I got this one from Otto Frey, I believe, would work fine for sort of a personal project in making these. Let's look at the line on the movement holder. Kind of see that color a little bit better. That line transferred pretty good. Both of those did. But you can see a little bit sketchy. I knew that was going to be a little bit sketchy. but it did okay, you know, in terms of proving that it would work. Just got to do it right. And this one didn't work near as well just because of the roughness of the dial. That gives you some idea. That shows you some variety of the outcomes. And so you kind of know what to expect, what to watch for, what to do, what to not do when you go into it. Best case scenario, get a nice, brand new, freshly painted dial blank, reasonable quality printer. You might turn out with an okay dial, but I would do multiples so that when little weird things happen like that, maybe you'll have one that's perfect that comes out when it's all said and done. So that's that. Well, there you go. You've seen some examples of using Waterslide decal paper, a couple different types on several different surfaces, and you can sort of maybe pick and choose what you think might be best for your situation if you were to get into making some custom dials and you're looking for that sort of lower cost option and don't want to spend too much money. As always, I hope you've found this video educational, helpful. I'm really just wanting to show different processes, ways of doing things, get some information out there for people that are learning and trying and tinkering and engineering, doing things on your own. So again, if you want to get on board, subscribe. If you've got stuff to say, comments below. Follow me on Instagram at watch_complications. Keep watching the channel. Ring the bell if you want updates. I'm Brian. This is Watch Complications. Out.